Daniel wasn't looking for trouble when the sky cracked open above the abandoned port city. He had been scavenging scraps, arguing quietly with a malfunctioning drone that insisted a pile of twisted metal was a functioning fusion generator. The streets smelled of ozone and dust, left over from years of orbital bombardments, their echoes carrying the faintest memories of human life. He ignored the scanner's protests and focused on the silence, the way abandoned cities had their own rhythm. Cooling alloy hummed, cracked glass tinkled under the wind, and distant power lines vibrated like tired, electric insects. Then he heard it. A soft, uneven breathing, too small to belong to a machine. He froze, instinctively crouching, listening. The sound came again, accompanied by a faint shuffle. Behind a fallen cargo crane, he saw her. She was no older than 10, sitting against a slab of broken wall, knees drawn close, ears pressed flat against her head. Long ears. Distinctly alien. She looked at him, calculating, not with fear, but with a determination that made Daniel's stomach twist. He raised his hand slowly. "I'm not here to hurt you," he said, and immediately realized it sounded absurd. She tilted her head and said something, a thin, broken phrase that was clearly language, but utterly alien. Daniel stepped closer, offering a ration bar. Hunger won before trust did. She sniffed the bar, snatched it, and ate quickly, retreating half a step, eyes wide and watchful. Her name came later. At first, she was just a lost child in a city that had forgotten how to care for its own. Daniel wrapped a shallow wound on her leg, feeling foolish, but she endured it seriously, as if life had taught her discipline too early. When he asked about her family, she gestured vaguely at the ruins, then the sky, then nowhere at all. Daniel thought of calling someone, anyone, but something in her gaze held him back. He led her to his apartment, pretending this would be temporary. She followed, observing every machine, every flickering light, the way his cleaning drone trundled past. The first night, she refused to sleep in darkness. She insisted on sitting close, ears twitching at every noise. Daniel barely slept, listening to her breath, thinking the universe had a strange sense of humor. By morning, she had stolen his socks, renamed the cleaning drone, and insisted he be called Donnie. Language developed slowly, patchwork words exchanged with gestures and corrections. She learned quickly, absorbing words like she had absorbed the ration bar, with urgency, with joy. She invented sentences that made no sense but conveyed everything she wanted, like, "Sky-hungry laugh now." Daniel decided it was valid. Days passed. He learned 3 truths about alien children. They could eat endlessly, their ears betrayed their emotions, and nothing in his apartment was his anymore. On the 5th day, he decided to introduce her to the outside, carefully. They went to a small patch of sky visible between skyscrapers. She squinted at the sun, then relaxed. "Safe?" she asked. "For now," he said. "Mostly." Her hand found his without asking. She belonged here, if only for a moment. Then the sky spoke. A low vibration rolled through the air, deep enough to settle in bone, followed by a sudden pressure shift that made the windows groan. Kia froze, one ear upright, the other flattened. "Sky noise," she said. Daniel moved to the window. Outside, the clouds parted perfectly. 3 drop ships descended, gleaming, insignias glowing. Not rescue. Not accident. Authority had arrived. The door chimed behind him, a polite, but menacing sound. Daniel opened it to see a line of armored guards. Between them, a woman. Tall. Composed. No armor, but danger radiating from her like a living field. Her ears, long and metallic-lined, pulsed faintly. "Kia," she said. The child gasped and pressed against Daniel, wrapping her arms around him. "I came to take my daughter," the woman said, calm, measured. "Step aside." Daniel froze. Hello," he stammered. "You are human. You have my child," she continued, voice sharp. Kia shook her head violently. "No palace. No soldiers. Stay, Donnie." The woman studied Daniel, puzzled. He shrugged helplessly. "I'm persistent," he said, as though that explained everything. After a long pause, the woman knelt, bringing herself to the child's level. "I am your mother," she said softly. Kia sniffed. You smell like war, she said. The mother flinched, almost imperceptibly. I never stopped looking for you, she replied. Kia considered this. Then, touching the mother's sleeve, she said, curious. Cautious. You have soft hands. Yes, the woman said quietly. I forgot how to use them when everything became fire. Daniel smiled weakly. It's okay. I'm right here. Kia stepped forward. I go, she said. But he comes. The mother straightened, considering Daniel. After a long moment, she nodded. You will come as her guardian, she said. Inside the palace, Daniel discovered the scale of alien civilization. Floors shifted with his weight, ceilings rose impossibly high, star maps and imperial data streamed across translucent panels, drones drifted overhead, adjusting temperature and light. Kia skipped freely, laughing. He stumbled. She corrected him. She named every sound. The palace had order, but it was learning how to be home. The first week was chaos in miniature. Tutors arrived, presenting imperial history and adaptive learning fields. Daniel asked questions, offered snacks. Kia answered questions no one asked. Leadership is listening when small voices talk. Meals were battles of tradition versus improvisation. Kia mixed sauces into colors that made formal diplomats gasp. Daniel smiled. The Queen tasted the combinations, discovered they were better, and pretended it meant nothing. One afternoon, a containment drone misinterpreted Kia's laughter as a threat. Daniel fell into a suspended net of light. Kia laughed harder. The Queen deactivated the drone herself, steady hands on Daniel's shoulders. Evenings were quiet. Daniel and the Queen watched the city lights breathe like a living map, sharing stories of battles won and quiet lives lived. Kia slept nearby, dreaming without fear. The first celebration that didn't require victory reports was tentative. Banners displayed shifting constellations instead of emblems of conquest. Music was soft. Guards were uncertain. Daniel stood with a cup of fluid that changed flavor every few seconds. Kia ran past him, correcting diplomats and declaring ceilings too shiny. Only when she found him did she smile properly. Queen Sarah, dressed as a ruler but without armor, addressed her people. My people, we are taught strength is control, order is protection. Today I learned smaller, harder truths. Safety is built with presence, not walls. Daniel felt Kia's hand slip into his. He squeezed back. Later, on the balcony, he watched the stars reflect in the Queen's eyes. She said softly, "She will stay here. With me. With you." Kia appeared, sleepy but determined, arms wrapped around them both. "Family," she declared. Daniel rested a hand on her shoulder. The palace adjusted around them, lights softening, defenses lowering. Far above, ships moved silently through dark space. Wars paused. Histories waited. He didn't know what would come next. But for once, the universe had looked at him and simply allowed him to be present. The palace hummed like a living thing. Every surface, every panel, every drone, and light seemed to respond to Kia's presence. Daniel followed her carefully, aware that one wrong step could trigger a correction field or a polite reprimand from an invisible system. Yet, Kia moved like she belonged. Her long ears flicked constantly, reading everything, learning everything. "Donnie," she said, tugging at his hand. "Today is serious." "What's serious?" Daniel asked, already bracing himself. He had learned the palace had a serious level above almost certain death and below catastrophic shame. Kia glanced at the Queen, who was seated in the Grand Council chamber, reviewing what looked like an endless array of holographic reports. Her ears twitched once, then straightened. The metallic bands along their length glimmered softly. "Training," Kia said. "I have to be smart today. Very smart. Important smart." Daniel exhaled. He suspected important smart involved puzzles, lasers, and things that could electrocute him by accident. "Follow me, Donnie," she said, dragging him toward the central hall. The floor responded to their weight, adjusting slope and lighting, guiding them to a section of the palace Daniel hadn't yet explored. The hall opened into a large atrium, with platforms floating in midair, moving silently along invisible rails. Drones hovered in formation, projecting holographic shapes, geometric puzzles, simulations of distant star systems, and tactical combat sequences. "Your first trial," the Queen announced, standing at the center, her presence folding the space around her like gravity, "is observation and ingenuity. You must navigate the atrium, retrieve the data crystal, and return without triggering any defensive systems." Kia clapped, eyes sparkling. "I can do that. Right, Donnie." Daniel swallowed. I guess." He already regretted that word. The Queen didn't wait for a response. The platforms shifted, forming a labyrinth of floating pathways. Some emitted faint pulses that suggested electrical charge. Some seemed to vanish if stepped on incorrectly. The data crystal hovered in the center of the maze, glowing faintly blue. Kia skipped forward, her small hands brushing panels and sliding along rails. Daniel followed, careful. His boots made no sound on the magnetic surfaces, but every movement felt amplified, as if the palace itself was watching. The first obstacle came quickly. A series of floating panels, arranged like stepping stones, hummed faintly. When Daniel stepped on the wrong one, a shock zapped through the floor, throwing him sideways. He barely grabbed a rail before crashing into the wall. Kia giggled. "Try again. Watch me." She bounded across the panels, ears high, landing perfectly every time. Daniel took notes, mentally, desperately. He couldn't let the child succeed without him looking competent. By the third attempt, he understood the rhythm. Some panels were reactive, others were silent. Timing, observation, subtle movement. He adjusted, following Kia's lead, trusting the human instinct that no machine could predict completely. Finally, they reached the center. The crystal floated just above a platform, surrounded by a shimmering field. Daniel hesitated. Any misstep might trigger alarms or worse. "Donnie," Kia whispered. "We can do it." He nodded. Carefully, he extended his hand. He felt the hum of the field, calculated the timing of the pulses, and grabbed the crystal. A soft click echoed. The field dissolved. They had succeeded. Kia cheered, spinning in delight. "I told you, Donnie. Smart important." Daniel grinned, though his heart was still pounding. "You were right. As usual." The Queen observed silently, arms crossed. A small curve appeared on her lips, a rare acknowledgement of approval. The day didn't end there. Once the crystal was secured, the next trial began, diplomacy. The Queen led them to the council chamber, where holographic representations of the palace's governors and allies were waiting. Each projection represented a distant planet or system under her rule. Today, the child heir was to practice negotiation and leadership, moderated by Daniel. Kia's eyes lit up. "I talk first." "Patience," Daniel muttered, glancing at the Queen. "You are not here to control her," the Queen said quietly. "You are here to observe and assist. Intervene only if necessary." The first scenario was simple, on paper. A trade dispute between two systems over resource allocations. The holograms argued, voices polite but firm. Kia listened carefully, her long ears flicking in multiple directions. "You're too loud," she scolded one hologram. "Be polite. Listen when someone is small." Daniel blinked. The council murmured. The Queen raised a hand. Silence followed. "She's right," the Queen said softly. "Sometimes, listening is stronger than speaking." Kia smiled proudly. "Donnie, did you hear that?" "Yes," he said. "I heard that loud and clear." The child continued to mediate, surprising everyone with the clarity and simplicity of her decisions. She asked questions no one considered. How the resources affected families, schools, and small businesses. She suggested compromise solutions that balanced power and compassion. By the end, the council had agreed to her proposals. Daniel glanced at the Queen. Her expression was unreadable. Then, finally, she allowed a small nod. Evening brought a different kind of trial, adaptation. The palace had been quiet, but systems still responded to presence and movement. Daniel and Kia entered a chamber designed for physical agility and reflex training. Platforms shifted, walls moved, and holographic opponents appeared, testing speed, coordination, and tactical thinking. Daniel, exhausted mentally from the day's events, was quickly overwhelmed. He stumbled, triggered alarms, and narrowly avoided a pulse net that would have suspended him midair again. Kia thrived. She darted across the platforms, arms and legs moving in precise harmony, ears twitching as she predicted shifts before they happened. Daniel tried to follow her lead, but his human instincts were clumsier, slower. Yet, he noticed something remarkable. She paused sometimes, waited for him to catch up, adjusted her pace not for her own success, but to ensure they moved as a team. The Queen observed from above, silent. By the end of the exercise, they had completed the course. Daniel collapsed onto a resting platform, breathing heavily. Kia jumped down next to him, offering water synthesized by a hovering drone. "You did fine," she said seriously. Daniel laughed weakly. "You were carrying me half the time." "Teamwork," she corrected. "Very important. Humans sometimes forget teamwork." That night, Daniel and Kia returned to their quarters. The Queen had excused herself, leaving them alone. "I don't know how much more of today I can survive," Daniel admitted, collapsing onto a chair. Kia leaned against him, her small body warm and steady. "I like learning. But I like being with you more." He touched her head gently. "I like being with you, too. More than I expected." She smiled, long ears bouncing. "Tomorrow more trials." "Probably," he said. "But I think you'll be ready." She hummed, a low sound of contentment, then whispered, "We'll do it together." And Daniel realized something he hadn't yet admitted to himself. She wasn't just a child in need of protection. She was a partner, a companion in navigating this alien, vast, and dangerous universe. Morning brought the final trial of the chapter, an unexpected attack. A silent alert activated as Daniel and Kia approached the observation deck. Sensors had detected unauthorized movement near the palace perimeter. Before he could process, a squad of small attack drones darted past the exterior windows, testing defenses. "Don't panic," Daniel said, heart pounding. Kia's ears twitched. "No panic. Fight smart. Don't forget important smart." The palace systems responded instantly, activating shielding protocols. Kia watched, observing patterns, then shouted, "Focus here." She pointed to a weak point in the drone's formation. Daniel acted without hesitation, rerouting control panels, redirecting energy fields, and surprisingly, the pair managed to neutralize the attack before it escalated. The Queen arrived moments later, observing the aftermath. "You did well," she admitted, expression tight. "The child has courage, instinct, and you, human, have adaptability. Rare. Valuable." Daniel felt a warmth in those words, pride mingling with exhaustion. Kia beamed. "See, Donnie. Important smart again." "Yes," he said, smiling despite himself. "We did it together." That night, as the palace quieted, Daniel stood at the balcony once more, looking at the city lights below. Kia sat on the railing beside him, legs dangling, ears twitching at every distant sound. "Don't worry," she said softly. "Tomorrow, more trials. But we are ready." Daniel nodded, hand resting lightly on hers. "I'm ready if you are." The stars above reflected in her wide eyes. Daniel felt, for the first time in a long while, that despite the vastness of space, the uncertainty of alien politics, and the weight of responsibility, they had found a small equilibrium. They were not invincible. They were human and alien, fragile and clever, small against the cosmos, but together, capable of more than either could imagine. And somewhere beyond the dark expanse, ships moved, systems watched, and the universe waited to test them further. For now, though, they had succeeded. For now, they had each other.